Whenever you're ready.
Alright, my name is Bret and I'm going to be giving a speech on the legalization of medical marijuana nationwide. I believe that medical marijuana legalization nationwide would be highly beneficial for two main reasons, and it has been proven to help with health issues, and its alternative drugs to the marijuana do not help as much as the actual marijuana does. So first, I'm going to talk about the health issues that it helps. Marijuana can help with certain symptoms caused by AIDS, cancer, epilepsy, and others. Patients who have used marijuana have shown improved immune functions, and one example of the marijuana helping an illness would be epilepsy, of a young girl named Charlotte Figge, and she was 5 years old, and she was born with epilepsy, and she had her life saved by medical marijuana. She had been suffering in long-lasting seizures, which were only when she was only 3 months old. She'd be having up to 300 seizures a week, and her parents, who were first not supportive of medical marijuana, had done almost everything, and they had done blood tests. They had gotten them back when she was younger, and the doctors basically just said that it would probably go away, and eventually they went on a diet, and when she was 2 or 3 years old, she was still having the seizures 300 times a week, and so they finally resolved to the medical marijuana usage. They found a doctor that prescribed them with the med card, and which was kind of hard because due to the many effects that they didn't know, that doctors didn't quite know would have on such a young girl. Not many wanted to do so, but they finally found a type of marijuana called R4, which is a type that's high in CBD and yellow and THC. And THC is the chemical in marijuana that gives off the high effect, and but it still helps with some symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, etc. And CBD is the chemical in marijuana that doesn't allow the consumer to feel high, but it can actually fight the more major symptoms and illnesses such as the seizures and epilepsy. After the marijuana was prescribed to her, the seizures stopped for 7 days. The Figge family had found a dispensary in Denver that had a large supply of R4 marijuana, and due to the marijuana, Charlotte is now 6 years old, and her seizures have been reduced to 2 to 3 seizures a month, and they're usually in her sleep. Due to the medical marijuana, a child's life was saved. Now she's able to walk, talk, eat, and even ride a bicycle. The second claim I'm going to go into, or supportive reason I'm going to go into, is the alternative to marijuana does not help as much as marijuana actually does. And so there are alternatives. One is called Marinol. Is an alternative drug. According to bustle.com, it says that the alternative drug only has the THC, which is found in in marijuana, but it does not have the CBD, which is the main chemical that fights against the anti-nausea, anti-convulsant, and antipsychotic properties in the illnesses. And so it shows that this drug, the Marinol, does not only fights exactly what the illnesses need to be fought, which can only be found in the actual marijuana. And also in an article that I read off of roadout.org, it talks about how medical marijuana is scheduled under Schedule 1 drugs, and then they're classified as high potential for abuse. But referring back to bustle.com, they claim, or they say how the drug was only scheduled under 1 because there was not enough evidence of the drug being very abusive to the body. And actually there are drugs that are much worse than marijuana, such as cocaine and methamphetamine, which are scheduled under 2, which claims that Schedule 2 means that it would be lower abuse than marijuana. All right, so thank you for your time, and I hope you have considered that medical marijuana legalization nationwide would be highly beneficial.
All right, here comes the part that most shocks people. I actually tell people what I thought of their speech, and so I'm going to let that run on the video, so when it's posted, that'll be there for you to listen to later on. Even though you're paying attention now, some people don't actually hear what I say immediately afterwards because they're in such shock. All right. Bret, you identified the proposition clearly, and you laid out the contents. I think you could have used an attention device to get our interest in the subject a little bit more, but you were pretty direct there. I think you need to talk a little bit more about the controversy, especially since medical marijuana is available in a lot of places. You do mention Marinol at one point, and so there are marijuana synthetics that are also available. So I think you need to give us a little bit more context on that in the setup of the presentation. In the body of the speech, you signposted the major points very clearly as you got to them, so I didn't have a problem following the organizational structure at all. I do think there's a little bit of a problem with the evidence, because the only evidence that you have on the first point is about epilepsy, and the only proof that you have for it is a single example, of this 5-year-old girl. By the way, there was no source given for that story, and I'm sure that you got it from someplace. I'm not saying that you made it up.
It's on the outline.
But yeah, 23 people will not get your outline, so they need to have it in the presentation. So you want to make sure that you do that. Also, same sort of thing about the R4 CBD, the argument, the information that says that that's the thing that produces the benefit or the medical benefit. That's and again, I'm not saying that it's not true. I think you need to give a source citation on that, because one of the first things that would make sense is if that can be synthesized and it lacks the THC, which is the thing that is so problematic, I would imagine that this would have been an issue that the FDA would have looked at before, especially since they've already approved Marinol, the synthetic, which apparently is high in THC. You did have 2 or 3 source citations, though, after that. I don't know what bustle.com is, so I think that's a little bit problematic. And roadout.org, I'm not exactly sure what that is either. And so in terms of credibility, I think that's a little bit of a problem. Both of them have titles that suggest that they're stoner sites to me. And I mean, I'm listening to that, It doesn't necessarily imply that there's any medical research that's going on here, that this is some blogger who has decided they're going to write about this. I don't know, like I said, and that's why I think you probably needed to cite that information a little bit more thoroughly. So the problem with the generalizations, I think, is that you're really dependent on the first point, on just this single example, and on the second point, the information is a little bit less complete than it ought to be. From a presentation point of view, I think you could use a little bit more energy. You look down quite a bit because you are reading quite a bit. And whenever you look down and you're wearing a hat, that makes your face disappear. And it's not a big deal. I mean, the delivery thing is not a huge part, but that's one of those things that you want to be thinking about. If you want to make eye contact with people, you want them to relate to you, you want to build ethos, you don't want to look like you are indifferent to being there. I'm looking down at the dirt waiting for the next pitch. You want to be looking at the audience and anticipating their response to what you're saying. All right, thank you for starting us.